Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello, and welcome to the Senior Resources Show. My name is Christine Cary, and I'm the Director of the Town of Colonie Senior Resources Department. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm very fortunate to have as guests with me Annette Esposito, Case Manager of the Equinox Elder Abuse Project, and Cathy Fahey, Community Educator with the Equinox Elder Abuse Project. Thank you both for joining me today.
Oh, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for having us.
Well, thanks for coming. I wanted to really learn about your program. You've been in to see me and see my staff, and we've learned about your program, but I think it's such a critical community program that I thought it would be terrific to have you come on and share some information on the program. I think a lot of seniors and community members are very familiar with Equinox, particularly through the Thanksgiving program. I know many of my clients receive the Thanksgiving meals. So I was hoping that maybe you could give us a little bit of an overview about the Equinox program, and then we'll get into the Elder Abuse Project.
That sounds terrific, Chris. Just as you stated, people know Equinox by the community Thanksgiving dinner that we have every year. Thousands of dinners are served to the to people in the community. A lot of senior citizens as well as other homebound individuals. But Equinox does have a wide array of other services. We have a homeless youth shelter, and we have a youth outreach program. We have a transitional living program for our teenagers who are aging out of the foster care system and wanting to become more independent. Equinox also has a counseling program, and then we do have a very large domestic violence program, and that includes a domestic violence shelter with 30 beds. And then we get into the Elder Abuse Project.
So certainly enough to always keep you busy, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, you have a terrific reputation in the community, and I know many of my colleagues and folks that I've worked with in the community have used your services, and I think what you provide is just terrific. But let's get started on talking about the Elder Abuse Project that you have at Equinox. Can you tell me a little bit about the program, why it was started?
Go ahead.
Sure. Well, what they in our domestic violence program, what they began to see is older victims of domestic violence, and they brought with them different set of circumstances than the younger victims of domestic violence. And what you would see is individuals who are much more reluctant to leave their homes, though. We do, like I said, have the shelter. The shelter a lot of times will have the younger women with their children. This is not always a real comfortable place for an older domestic violence victim to be. But Equinox has been able to address that a little bit with their new shelter that they have. But the older victims of domestic violence, again, they have trouble leaving their homes, and they also come with a wide array of other issues. They may have health and medical needs, transportation issues, and things of that sort. So they bring a whole different set of circumstances with them. And there's also a real need to coordinate services as well for the older victims of domestic violence. We'd like to, when you get involved with law enforcement and the courts and health service providers and medical service providers, everybody has to be on the same page, and it really requires a lot of coordination. I don't know if you want to add something.
No,
to
you
that.
covered that pretty well. One of the main differences between seniors that are being abused and the younger domestic violence population is most of the seniors do own their own homes. They've lived in their homes for many, many years. So as Cathy was saying, it's difficult for them to leave. Most of them that are currently on our caseload are women who are widows. They don't have a spouse there, so they don't want to leave where they are. Many of them, and the ones that do have spouses that are abusing them. Again, it's a very difficult situation where they've been there their whole lives. They don't want to leave. Versus a younger population where a lot of them don't have established homes, they're living in apartments, it's easier for them to pick up and move and relocate.
Let me just add one more thing too. They're often very dependent on the caregiver as well. It could be the same person who could be providing a lot of their needs, their transportation, going to the store, going to the pharmacy for them. They could also be their abuser, which makes it very difficult.
And I think it's important that we clarify really what is elder abuse? What are the types of situations that, you get calls, from seniors or concerned community members? Because it seems like a very frightening term if a senior, for a senior to self-identify themselves that way.
Absolutely.
So if you could talk a little bit to that, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Elder abuse takes many different forms. Again, there's the physical abuse, which we see in our normal DV population. But in addition to that, what our seniors are experiencing are a lot more emotional, psychological abuse, a lot of verbal abuse. Financial abuse is huge among the senior population. There are instances of sexual abuse as well, but primarily what we're seeing is financial abuse and emotional and verbal abuse in the population that we've been serving. Again, it's very difficult because these seniors are in more vulnerable states. They're very dependent on other people to take care of them, to assist them with their finances, and to attend to all of their needs. So when they put their trust into someone, whether it be a family member or another caregiver, they don't even realize that they're being abused in many situations until someone else steps in and takes a look at the picture.
If it's occurred for many years, it's my experience that folks start to think this is the way it's supposed to be, and they don't see it as a form of abuse until it's pointed out to them.
Yes, that type of emotional abuse that they experience that's gone on for many years, that's actually life-shortening. If somebody's in a situation where they're constantly being intimidated, constantly being berated, yelled at, controlled in different ways, threatened, the actual act of physical abuse is bad and it's certainly a horrible thing. But the threat of physical abuse, the threat of neglect, can be just as damaging to a senior citizen, especially when it's occurring over a long period of time.
That's very, very true. And that's why it's so important that, seniors and family members and community folks, watch these shows, get this information, because as we all heighten our awareness, the more we can identify maybe the situation in our neighborhoods or in our own families.
I think a lot of the viewers will probably remember earlier in the year we had there were headlines about a situation where a woman in her 70s actually died and it seems like it's a result of serious neglect. She was found completely malnourished, and she died as a result of that.
That was very sad.
And she had an adult, one of her adult children was the caretakers, and I think members of the community were left asking, what could have been done to prevent that from happening? And we're hoping that the services Equinox provides, getting the word out there about elder abuse, will help address situations like that. So it'll come to the attention of service providers and the law long before the result is a death.
Right, and I think many times these neglect when that happens is often the families aren't even, it sort of mounts, it builds, and the situations get worse and worse for the caregiver. You know, the stress they're under may cause it. It certainly probably didn't start that way and has kind of reached this pinnacle, which is, like you said, can be life-threatening or life-ending for somebody. Did you want to mention something
Well, I
else?
just wanted to say that, you know, with dealing with the senior population, they're a very vulnerable population, but they're also a very trusting population, which is what makes them vulnerable. I mean, they've grown up with very strong morals and values, trusting people or giving people, and unfortunately, there's many people today that take advantage of that kind of stuff. That really makes them more vulnerable and puts them at a higher risk for the financial abuse, especially. And I just wanted to point that out because, again, in our age groups, you know, we're a little bit more cautious about what we do, regardless of whether it's somebody who's supposed to be working for us and helping us or not.
They ask more questions.
Right, and they're just so trusting that, okay, this person was sent to help me, this is my daughter, this is my son, I just have to do whatever they tell me to do because they know best for me. And that's not always the case.
That's not always the case. Now, when a person comes to your agency or is identified and referred on to your agency, what are the next steps, and what can the senior expect to be the next steps?
Well, generally when a call comes in, they usually speak to me. I'm the case manager. First, I do an assessment, a needs assessment for them to get the whole story, what's going on. Obviously, safety is our main concern. Especially if it's a physical abuse situation, we want to make sure that we get the senior to a safe place. The police would get involved, Adult Protective Services would get involved in helping getting that person to a safe location. Again, it's an evaluation of what type of abuse is going on and what needs need to be met. Once we're sure that the person is safe, then we can start looking at some of the other needs that they may have. If it's a financial abuse, it may be a matter of closing bank accounts and opening new bank accounts, putting passwords on bank accounts, establishing a power of attorney with someone. A lot of times, the needs go on and on and on for this population. I've dealt with people who were in foreclosure because of an abuse of an adult son taking money out of a bank account where there wasn't money to pay the mortgage. We've worked with agencies and we've worked with banks to help stop foreclosures on seniors. We've stopped a National Grid disconnect, other utility disconnects for people. Again, if there's medical needs, we attend to those. I've had a situation where one of my seniors hadn't been taken to the doctors for any follow-up appointments in a year and a half. So there was a medical neglect there going on. She had a previous fracture that was never followed up on. So I had someone else whose dentures got lost, so she was without teeth. So she couldn't eat her nutritional.
Her nutrition, sure.
So there's just a whole gamut of things that we've done.
And one issue snowballs into another.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And usually, again, once we identify the abuse, we try to go through family court and establish an order of protection for the senior. So we act as court advocates for our seniors. Some of them will get no contact order of protection so that they cannot have any contact with their child whatsoever, whoever the abuser is. And in most of my cases, it is an adult child. Some of them, they have what they call no illegal contact order of protection, which means that they can have contact, but the abuser cannot do anything illegal. If they take anything from mom's house, if they swear at mom, if they call her a name, any of those types of things, would obviously a theft or harassment would be in violation of the order of protection, which they could be criminally charged at that point. Most of the abusers that I am coming across with these seniors are adult children who have substance abuse problems or mental health issues. If that's identified right away, which it isn't always because the seniors don't want to say anything bad about their child, so it sometimes doesn't come out in the beginning. But if it is, we can put that into the family court petition, and the judge may then ask for a psych evaluation or a substance abuse evaluation to help the abuser to get help. We don't work with the abusers, we just work with the seniors, but sometimes if the courts get involved, they can mandate that kind of treatment. I have one client who her son was identified as a substance abuser. The judge ordered a substance abuse evaluation. He went into treatment. She's loving life now. He's gone, he's living on his own. He was living with her, abusing her, getting violent whenever he didn't have money to do drugs with. And now he's living on his own. They have contact once or twice a month. She still won't allow him at her home, but she has contact and she's resuming all the activities that she used to have.
She sounds like a strong person.
Absolutely.
To be able to set those limits.
Absolutely. But part of that came with the court enforcing him to do something as well.
So even though you don't provide the actual services to the abuser, you do refer them, or even if it's through the court system, you do try to, because that's going to give the senior some peace of mind to know that their adult child or whomever the abuser is, if it's a close relationship, is getting some help.
Right.
It's going to help them in their healing process.
We can give them information, but we don't actually deal with the abusers. We can give the senior information to give them, or an advocate that's working with the abuser to, for them to get some type of help and treatment.
Now, how long does a case typically stay open? Because I'm sure it takes time to develop a trust with someone to allow them to help, allow you to help them.
Well, this program started in March, so it's a brand new program. So as far as length that we keep the case open, it's really undetermined at this point. Many of the people, my first cases that I've taken on are still open cases and still have active issues. It may not be the abusive situation that we're dealing with. We may have gotten that calmed down, but we're still dealing with some of the issues that were a result of the abuse. So we're still following those cases.
So once you're through the immediate crisis, you can help them with maybe finding appropriate housing or health care or nutrition programs, transportation, those types of core services that the elderly need to stay living in the community.
Absolutely. Generally, transportation is a big issue for most of the seniors. That's one of the first things that I assist them with, and hooking them up with senior services in their area. Because there's usually a multitude of programs that they can be involved in and assistance that they can get.
So heightening community awareness of your program has to be a very important component of your jobs, because many times we providers of services like the Town of Colonie Senior Resources see situations that maybe raise a red flag to us, and we think, well, gee, maybe this needs to be looked into a little bit further. We'll call the police, or now we can reach out to your organization to help with these cases.
That's one of the it's great with the seniors. I mean, especially when there's a situation of abuse, the elderly, they don't want to think that this is abuse. That's a very scary word. And when a social service program is able to make a referral to a place like Equinox rather than go right to the police, that may be the answer to get, if you can frame it in a different way, that they're going to get help with transportation or their medical needs. That's a way to provide supportive services rather than just scary, because it can be a scary thing for an elder person to think that they're being abused.
Right.
And they'd be reluctant to get help because of that. Just as far as the importance of getting the word out, all the baby boomers are aging, and the senior population is expected to double over the next 5 to 10 years. So just as a result, you're going to see more and more of these cases of elder abuse. And we want to get the word out there to the community that when they see situations of abuse, not to turn away, but to report it. We want to respect people's privacy, but on the other hand, our elder citizens many times need assistance. And it's the community member's responsibility to report it when they feel somebody's being abused.
Now, if somebody refers or calls and reports a situation, is their confidentiality protected with the potential client or the victim? Because I think maybe some folks would be reluctant because they don't want their neighbor, Mrs. Smith, to think that they had some concerns and made this referral. So how do you handle when referrals come in from neighbors or maybe a church group or something like that?
This was something that has come up at Equinox because, again, it's very different from the DV population that Equinox has been used to working with. In our normal domestic violence situation, it's usually the victim that's calling in. With the elder abuse, it's usually someone calling on their behalf. So it was something very different, and we had to kind of play with this a little bit as to how we were going to handle it. What we've come up with, if the victim is not aware that this person is calling, we direct that person to call Adult Protective Services and have them do their investigation first. It then will come back to us for case management services as to what needs to be done. But we won't actually go out and do an investigation on a home that we don't know anything about. We kind of get involved after the investigation has been done so we know what we're dealing with. And that's more for safety purposes. We don't want to walk into a situation where an abuser is living there, they don't know who we are, and if a certain situation occurred, we would go with the police, possibly. But generally we refer people through Adult Protective Services to make the call to them first.
One of the things I'm wondering about is how do folks pay for your services? Is that this program, I believe, is funded through your organization? Is there a fee for service, or do you take health insurance plans?
No, there is no cost to this services. This program is funded through the New York State Children and Family Trust Fund.
Okay.
So there is no cost.
Well, that's an important thing for folks to know, that if they were, because case management can be expensive if folks privately pay for it. So to know that there's someone there to walk them through. And case management is so critical because it's not just giving a senior a phone number to call and make a nutrition appointment, counseling appointment, or to make transportation, but you're actually going to see it through to make sure they did get that ride.
Absolutely.
Or they did get that heating benefit or whatever it is that they may need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's I think the most important component of the program is that you're able to follow people and make sure that they're stabilized and back on their feet and getting the services so that they can return to being a productive part of our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we haven't mentioned is that we also offer counseling services, again, which is a no-charge fee. We have, right now there's one counselor that's designated to working with the seniors who have been abused. So that's open, that's offered to every senior that's referred. Whether they take the case management services piece or not, they are offered counseling services.
Oh, that's great. So if a community member or a family member suspects that a loved one is being abused in any way, what should their first steps be? Would it be to call Adult Protective?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or the police. I mean, if they really see evidence of physical abuse and they need immediate intervention, I would have them call 911.
Okay.
There are a couple of other numbers. Our 24-hour hotline, we want to make sure that people do have that number.
Yes,
and
please.
then the person who answers that number can make that decision about whether or not Equinox can handle the situation or if it should be referred to the police. And we want to make sure you get that number.
Yeah, can you share those numbers with us?
That is 432-7865.
And that's the hotline
That
number?
is the Equinox 24-hour hotline.
Okay, great. And I know in Albany County, to contact Adult Protective Services. That phone number is 447-7177, the point of entry number.
Yes.
So that's a very important number, not just for Adult Protective Services, but if you need home care services or any type of county service. So,
Chris, one other thing I did want to say is we are available to come out to any community group to talk about the problems of elder abuse, and hope people will contact us to do that.
well, I hope so too. This has been very, very informative, and as we've mentioned in this half hour, just getting the word out there that abuse is not right, it's not normal, and seniors should not have to be subjected to it, that there is help out there, I think is a really critical message, because many seniors probably, if they've been in this situation for a long time, don't see it as an abusive situation. Was there anything that you wanted to add before we close today?
The only other thing that I wanted to add, getting back to the adult child being the abuser, we all know that abuse is not right, and again, in the normal DV population, the victims a lot of times press criminal charges. That's been something that's been very difficult with this population, because you're dealing with a parent-child relationship, and the seniors are not willing most of the time to pursue any kind of charges against their child. Now, the abusive situations that I've seen where it's been a spouse, they don't have any problem pursuing criminal charges, but when it's the parent-child situation, they won't go through with it. And I just want to stress that it's very important for any seniors watching the show that you really should look at really pursuing any criminal action, because you want to break the cycle. If somebody's still continued, not punished in any way, or doesn't receive any disciplinary actions for what they're doing, the cycle is just going to keep continuing,
that's
and you
very
need to
true.
break that cycle.
That's a very important point. Now, just one, while you were speaking, I was thinking about the ratio of the clients that you're serving now. Are the abusers typically adult children? Is that the biggest portion?
Absolutely.
Of your cases?
Right now I have a caseload of 12. 2 are spousal situations, the rest are adult children.
Okay, well, that's a very important
Absolutely.
indicator right there, that just because it's your child providing the care for you, there may be other issues there that need to be
Absolutely.
addressed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Cathy, for joining me today, and Annette. This has been terrific information for our viewers to get, and I wish you continued success in this program. It's very, very needed in our community, so thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
Chris.
us.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining me today on Senior Resources Show. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good day.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.